Welcome to the Dairy News and Views podcast, a production of the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. Our podcast covers current educational, research, and industry tools available for your operation to manage healthy cows and calves while producing the highest quality dairy products.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hola y bienvenidos to this episode of Spanish Fridays with the Dairy News and Views podcast from the ISU Extension Dairy Team. I'm Gail Carpenter. I'm your host for this series. This is actually going to be the last in the series for this year. We're gonna take a pause and come back later. But we've been having a lot of fun with this series. And I've been your host for it, Gail Carpenter. I'm the state dairy specialist here at Iowa State. I'm been joined by my friend and colleague, Miguel Rangel, who's the owner of Optimum Dairy Consulting and Recruiting. We've been practicing a little bit of Spanish. We've been talking about some common vocabulary terms, but we've also been spending a lot of time talking about employee management and people management. I am, as a dairy specialist, I'm not working a lot with dairy employees, but I do work with employees and I work with students and I work with doing some mentoring and guidance. And so I kind of bring that perspective and an interest in that. And Miguel, obviously, this is his bread and butter is employees and employee management. So we've been having some fun conversations around that too. And for our final episode in this series, Dairy News and Views podcast is not ending. I should also clarify that.
Oh, yeah. By the way.
Just our Spanish Fridays. We're taking this will be you can think of it as season 1 for our Spanish Fridays. And so we're going to be taking a pause after this episode. My spring semester gets kind of crazy. And so we're gonna let me focus on some of that. And Miguel's gonna focus on his work for a bit. But we thought as we kind of move into that hiatus, and especially since this is about the turn of the year, so we're recording this before Christmas, but it'll come out right around that Christmas and New Year's time. And it's always a time where I like to think about all the books I've read this year and make recommendations to people. And Miguel's also a big reader. And so we like talking about the books that we read, and we thought our listeners might as well. So that was a really long ramble, Miguel. Welcome.
Yeah, by the way. Buenos días. ¿Cómo
Buenos
están?
días. Yes. We're not probably going to be practicing a ton of Spanish in this episode, but we'll probably still sneak a few words in here and there.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Before we get started,
how do you say book?
Libro, right? Isn't that a Libro? Libro or Libra? Libro,
No,
right?
Libro. Actually,
Libro.
Libra is pound.
Oh,
Yeah, like 100 pounds of milk, 100 libras de leche.
Oh, okay.
That's a good one,
See,
huh?
we did sneak some vocabulary in there. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Before we get started on book recommendations and some of the stuff that we've learned, here's a controversial question for you.
Okay.
Some people think it's controversial anyway. Do audiobooks count as reading?
Well, that's not reading.
Oh, you don't think so? I think so.
Well,
I think audiobooks count.
But audiobooks count as listening because you are listening.
Consuming a book, I guess.
Oh,
yes.
But you can consume information by listening, by tasting, by looking.
Yes.
So it counts as information in your brain, yes. But it doesn't count as reading per se. I think the difference is how your brain processes information.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when you read, different parts of your brain get stimulated versus listening, which other parts of your brain get stimulated. That's why we have the different kinds of learning styles, right? Some people are very visual. Some people they need to very pragmatic. They need to write things or do things. And I think that's the beauty of it, because you have people with a lot of info here, but they can transfer that into action. And some people without that much information, but they are good at doing things. They just need some more coaching. Yeah.
Yes, I see. I take your point. I do think that I maybe we should say that audiobooks count as finishing a book, right? Like,
well, yeah.
If I say when I say I've read 50 books in a year, I'm down this year. Usually last year, I did 80 books, I think. The year before I was over 100. This year, let me pull up my Goodreads and see. I've been doing more podcasts than books this year. But
Hmm.
I do reading like a physical copy and audiobooks. Um,
Yeah, me too.
and let's see, what do I have for Goodreads? What do I do for 2025? They do their like beta reading challenge. I've only read 35 books this year. So I am quite a bit down from where I was last year, but that's fine. I don't, it's not a competition.
No, as long as sometimes you can't read as many because of how busy you are,
Yeah.
and that's normal.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also found when I was trying to like hit a certain number of books in a year, I'd like focus on doing shorter books, right? And then I was like, well, this is like I should just read books that I like at a pace that I like. And
And
who
that
cares how much I actually read? Yeah.
and that's the other thing, right? We are talking about books. The nice thing about books, there are books about almost anything. And sometimes you can read only about, for example, leadership or employee management,
Hmm.
or for example, dairy. Sometimes you need to read books about finances
Yep.
or just a love story or
Hmm.
science fiction. It depends on what you like, but
Yes.
you need to intermingle them.
I'm definitely not a person who is like poo-poos fiction. You know, I do read a lot of nonfiction, and I feel like people who read a lot of nonfiction can be like, ugh, fiction's a waste of time. I am not one of those people. I love fiction. And I love also all sorts of different kinds of fiction. When people ask me what kind of books I like, it's really hard to pick.
That's funny that you mentioned because I used to be like the person that you mentioned. I used to read only nonfiction
Hmm.
and I thought fiction was a waste of time.
Hmm.
Then,
What
I
changed your
learned
mind?
that
Yeah.
my brain is just that when you read a lot of nonfiction, your brain is only left-handed,
Hmm.
let's say, so very logical, processing information.
Hmm.
But where the imagination and creativity comes from is from the right hemisphere.
Yep.
So I was very left hemisphere, not that
Yep.
much right hemisphere. So then I started watching shows or reading science fiction, like for example, as far as shows, Game of Thrones was one of those shows that I was like,
Mm.
I don't think I'm gonna like a show with dragons and all that, but I like it because of all the plot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what science fiction books have. Like, for example, Isaac Asimov, it has this super famous Foundation.
Hmm.
I couldn't read all of it, but at least the the first book, what I read about the first book, because I couldn't finish that one. It was very exciting, and it has a lot of,
Yes.
I guess, fresh ideas that you don't find in nonfiction.
That book is on my shelf too. Yes. I also there's like actual data out there that shows that reading fiction promotes empathy. It promotes a lot of, like you said, creativity, imagination, and I think it lends a lot to some of those soft skills too. And so yeah, I mean, if you don't like fiction, that's fine, right? I'm not going to tell you what you have to like or not like, but when people are like, I don't read fiction as if it's like a flex, I'm always like, okay, you're missing out. Like
Do
that
you
sounds
know
like a you
what?
problem. I'm sorry that your life sucks.
Right.
No offense
I
to any
even
listeners who aren't fiction people. Like I said, read and listen to what you like. But
exactly. But one of the series that in Mexico there is a very good writer. Well, I mean, his name is Francisco Martin Moreno. He has books about history, but
oh,
obviously it's fiction. So
yes.
some things that happen, but in reality, some things are added, right? And that makes for a very interesting book because you put yourself in that time. For
Hmm.
example, the 1910s when the Mexican Revolution was going on.
Oh,
For example, they talk about what was happening, Pancho Villa. I don't know. That's a very interesting. And then there are some others, but I was gonna say that regarding reading or listening for fiction, it helps you understand people.
hmm, yes.
I think that's the main thing.
Yes.
Yes, because you see different characters think differently.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is a good fiction writer, they will develop the character to a
Yep.
point that you know how he thinks or she thinks,
Yep.
what
Yep.
she's gonna do, etc. And I think that's what really helped me because what I do is I work a lot with people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see what they do, how they behave, how they react to stressful situations, or stressful employees,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of them can't handle. It's not like they can handle, they need training like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
to handle
Yep.
different circumstances.
That's right. Just like we started talking this about like empathy and understanding people, and all that is a muscle that you can grow, you can develop by flexing it and practicing with it. So, and fiction is a great way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
we started talking about audiobooks, and I brought up audiobooks because I know a lot of people who work around dairy, especially dairy producers and dairy employees. Like, you are busy people. Like,
No, they
we
are.
are surrounded by busy people, and having time to like sit down and read is not always like you some days you barely have time to sit down and drink a cup of coffee, right? Or eat dinner, right? You're eating on the go, you're drinking on the go. You might not be like even sitting to, put your feet up for very much time at all. And as soon as you do, you're falling asleep, right? Um, and so reading can seem like we're going to recommend some books and you might think, oh, reading's just not something I have time for. But audiobooks are a great thing to do when for multitasking. I like doing it while I'm, um, walking into work, or if I have to drive around the state, I like to put an audiobook in. If I'm doing something really mindless, right? Like, not all of my tasks require a lot of brain power. Um, so I might put an audiobook in then, or if I'm making dinner, doing the dishes, cleaning up around the house, I might have an audiobook in. Um, so audiobooks are no shame on people who do audiobooks. I listen to a lot of the books that I'm consuming. Um, and if you are, we did mention this a little bit about like safety earlier in the season. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some great headphones available that you can listen safely, right? Sometimes you should not be listening to things while you're doing work. Sometimes you should be focused on the work that you're doing, and even just having something in your ears might
Yeah,
cause. But
yeah.
Miguel always records with his aftershocks in. The bone conducing, and aftershocks is a brand, but the bone conducing headphones are great if you need to be able to listen a little bit more to what's around you. Because they don't sit inside the ear, they sit outside the ear. Um, so I like those for like running, or walking outside if I need to be aware of like what's going on around me. Um, I also have a pair of Bluetooth hearing protection headphones. So they're like DeWalt, they're full hearing protection. Um, just like having like actual earmuffs on or whatever. I'm blanking on the hearing protection. We've all seen it. Um, and yes, noise
Uh,
canceling headphones are not hearing protection, and that's something I've had to tell my students before. They
yes.
are not hearing protection. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but those ear things, right? The
The
the ones that sit
the
outside the
earphone.
ear, and actually prevent the noise from coming in. They do make those in Bluetooth.
Yes.
And so power washing is a great, always wear your hearing protection while you're power washing. And I really like having those in if I'm doing something like that, where like my aftershocks or something that sits in my ear, I would not be able to, that would be causing ear damage. But I can put on my hearing protection and still listen to a book. It's a great, it's one of my favorites. So I've had them on in the skid loader before. Um, I've had them on, yeah, in a lot of different situations where I need to wear hearing protection. So there's obviously safety issues, but some of those, depending on your circumstances and your equipment, um, audiobooks can still be a great option. So, and I'm not trying to tell anybody that they have to start listening to audiobooks. I'm just saying, if you want to read more, but you don't want to like fully go into like sitting down with a book every night for an hour, there's some workarounds, right?
Yeah.
Podcasts are also great if you're not into books, you're more into podcasts. I'm not here to judge. But as we're talking about some books today, there's just reminder that there's some great tools to help if you want to do a little bit more book consumption, if we want to call it that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So one question that I guess this may be interesting for some of you, but a lot of times there is a question that comes up, which is what books do you recommend, for example, right?
Mhm.
If I am having issues with my employees or and for me, one of the books that I would consider is even for me is being one of the best books. It is called Surrounded by Idiots. That's the name
Oh,
of the book. And the
okay.
author, his last name I think is Erickson. Let me check. I don't remember for sure, but uh I don't think I have that book right now here, but his last name is Erickson. It's a really good book because he talks about the four kinds of which we have, I guess, we have talked about different personality styles, etc. But this one is very mainstream. You have dominant people, you have conscientious,
Mm.
you also
Yes.
have steady, the
Yep.
this
Yep.
pretty much. So he talks about a lot, and he talks about how to talk to different people depending on your style.
Okay.
Obviously, there are newer versions with newer information, but that book for me was like, I think it was eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you always think, I guess there are things that you don't see. And
Hmm.
reading those books is like seeing the world in 3D. Otherwise, you're just watching a
Yeah.
movie. So that would, I don't know if you have read that one or
I have not. I don't even
no.
think I've heard of that one. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I really like the other book, and this is, I guess, it could be very interesting too for them. But this one is by Patrick Lencioni, and I wouldn't say it's a book. You can read any of the books from Patrick Lencioni, and those books are amazing because
Yeah.
he's a consultant. He works with companies, and he's been, I mean, I don't know if he's retired, but he's been doing it for many years. The Ideal Team Player, for example, it's a really good one.
There's another one that is it the five dysfunctions of a team that you've recommended to me before and I still haven't read?
Yeah, shame on you.
I know, I know.
Yes, that one, it's another very good one. The five dysfunction of a team. You can almost bet that in any place there is some sort of dysfunction. And that's how you go about it. Like, what do I need to do to work something out? Or why am I having these results? Right?
Right.
So the other thing is not only it is not only important that you know there are issues, but that's the first step. The
Hmm.
next step is how are you going to solve those issues? If and this is, I mean, for you to keep in mind, you can have a really good employee, but if you have issues and you don't know what those issues are, for example, you can't get along with that employee, well, the employee is going to leave, and you can bring another one. But if the issue persists, that employee is going to leave. So you need to find out why people are leaving. Are you the problem? Is the environment? What's really going on? How am I contributing for this situation to be this difficult, right? So that's why it is important to know the problem, know your personality style, know how you talk to employees,
Hmm.
and obviously try to choose whenever possible good employees that are going to stay for the long run, that have values, especially work ethic. And I think that goes a long way. But anyway, that's part of what the book, this one, the five dysfunction of a team. Yes, same author.
Yes. Um, and one of these days I will actually read it. because you've
Yeah.
recommended it to me so much, and every time you do, I'm like, I really need to read that book, and then it just has not been one that I've read yet. So I should make that a goal for 2026 to read every book that you recommend to me.
No, those books, like I said, those are some of my favorite books. Obviously, there are like Fierce Conversations.
Hmm.
Susan Scott is the author. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, different people, different personalities, but you know, in this industry, a lot of times you need to be more assertive,
Hmm.
right? And this book talks about that, like how problems can be solved if you really dig down. But
Yep.
in digging down, you also need to be ready to face yourself. Like,
Yes.
how am I contributing to this
Hmm.
issue? And that's the difficult part because, again, and I'm pretty sure that we have some farm owners, managers. The way a farm owner sees the farm is not the same way employees see the farm. So you would think, why don't employee do this? Why don't employee do that? Well, first, because they are not the owners, so they are not going to see things the same way unless they are really committed. And that's when you start your journey, like trying to see things from the perspective of the employee, so
Hmm.
then you can better understand their needs. For example, why do someone wouldn't wash the apron, let's say at the end of the day,
Hmm.
right? They are milking, the apron is disgusting, everything is disgusting. Well, there is no soap
Yep. Yep.
or even brushes sometimes, right? Or the aprons are just rinsed, but no, the aprons need washed, yes, but where is the soap?
Yeah.
So see, and maybe that was a cause of trouble. But the reason why it wasn't washed is because it was a legitimate reason. There was no soap.
Hmm.
How am I gonna wash it? So anyway, that's I would say you just need to read those
Yes.
books. Yeah, those
I
are good.
do think I love books about communication. Um, and I continue reading them and I continue enjoying them. But I felt like once I got to a certain point of enough, like reading enough books about communication, I was like, all of you people are using different things, different ways of saying the same thing. Um, and like I read one of my favorites, and I think if you're going to pick one communication book to read, difficult or crucial conversations is the term. Crucial conversations. If you're going to pick one communication book to read, especially around the workplace, that's the one that I would land on. Um, and I read another book in a book club not too long after that called Difficult Conversations. And the whole time as I was in this book club, I kept being like, well, yes, I know this. In crucial conversations, they call it this. In crucial conversations, they call it this. And they were using different terms for the same thing. Um, and then there was, if you've ever read any of Brene Brown's stuff, like a lot of like some of her jargon or her terms that she uses, I was like, well, yeah, this kind of like ties back to crucial conversations. Um, Crucial Conversations is one of my favorites because it is evidence based. It's based on research. It's incredibly practical. Um, some books you read and you're like, enough with all the anecdotes, right? Or like some books you read and there's a ton of filler in here. Crucial Conversations is all like very tool based, very like do this in this situation, do this in this situation, very evidence based. They've kind of it's in its third edition right now, so they've kind of honed in on their message quite a bit. Um, and it's not just a book, it's a whole like organization. So not only have I read Crucial Conversations, I did Crucial Conversations training. Um, I've actually read Crucial Conversations a couple times. And so they have a bunch of trainings around the concepts in the book. Um, I really liked doing the book and the training. But if you just did the book or just the training, I think those are both really great resources for talking about conversation. There are
Mhm.
so many cool concepts in there, um, that are in a lot of books that you'll read about communication. But if I had like one, like, hey, you want to read something about communication, that's the book I give to people. I
Mhm.
actually like when my grad students start, we read it together, right? So that we can talk about, okay, this is how we like how we should be communicating, right? So when I'm like being direct with you about something, it is because I'm trying to like make myself clear, right? And it's not something that like to take offense to. And so it gives us a good like common understanding and a common vocabulary to talk about when we're talking about how we talk to each other. I've actually had students come into my office before and be like, I'm practicing having a crucial conversation. And so
Yeah.
it's a great, if you manage people, if you work with people, if you're not just a hermit living like in a cave somewhere, it's a great book about like how people talk to each other and avoiding common communication traps before they become problems. So a great resource that I really enjoy. There's been some other ones out there that I've read, but like if I'm thinking about, okay, I need like a book about how to talk to people, hands down, that's the one I recommend. Um, I mentioned Brene Brown. I think everything she writes is really good too. The other author that I love is Adam Grant.
Adam Grant,
Um,
yes.
he is one
Mm.
I've heard some people be like, because he does kind of lean into the anecdote sometimes, which I like. But if you're like, okay, I'm just here for information, that might not be for you. But he is a PhD he's a PhD scientist in organizational psychology. So he studies what makes workplaces work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yes.
so he's got a lot of books out. I've never read an Adam Grant book that I don't like. He's also got a great podcast. It's called Rethinking with Adam Grant. Um, and he interviews different experts in their field. He's got a fantastic podcast. He's a great person to follow on like your social medias. He's not super flashy. He'll just post like images with script on them, but they're like summaries
Yeah.
of
Someone.
papers that have come out recently that kind of tie back to organizational psychology. So he's an expert that I highly recommend. My favorite book of his, I have two favorite books of his, I think. One of them is called Give and Take. And it's about
I've
people
read that
who
one.
are givers and people who are
Uh-huh.
takers.
Takers.
Um, and about how to like we kind of tend to think of those two things as like selfish and unselfish and on like a continuum of selfish to unselfish. But really we also have to think about it's not just how much I think about myself or don't think about myself, it's how much I think about others. Like you can think about others and still think about yourself, right? So you can have a high regard for other people while still having a high regard for yourself. Um, in a way that you're like not pouring from an empty cup, helping people without burning yourself out, helping people in a way that's actually helpful, right? Instead of just like helping them to make yourself feel better because you're such a selfless person. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
it's really inspired me to be helpful to other people in ways that are not um self like self-sacrificing, right? Like if I'm going to say yes, I'm going to help every single person to the max, like I can only do that so long before I no longer can help other people, not just myself, right? Like and
Yeah.
so be it helping people in a way that is that is gives yourself more opportunities to be able to continue helping in the future, I guess is a way to say that. Anyways, really good book. The other book of his that I recommend, and this is not directly related always to like employee management, but I really like his book Think Again. Um,
I'll think again. Yeah.
and I think that's a book that every scientist should listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's about not just being comfortable with what we think we know, but always thinking critically about and being willing to say I was wrong about something. Um, that's another really good one. Um, and yeah, he's had everything I've ever read of his I've really enjoyed. Not all of them will be directly applicable to employee and workplace, um, but I've always enjoyed every
But
book of his that I've read.
I think the important part is that, yeah, it may not be especially or directly related to employees, but a lot of them are directed, or I guess directed towards you, like you
Hmm.
as the reader. Like, for example, to be able to change course, to be able to say, I'm sorry or I was wrong.
Yep.
And that delves into the vulnerability part that Brené Brown talks about a lot.
Yep.
I mean, to say that you were wrong, it takes a lot because not everybody can do it. I mean, sometimes, especially in these fields where you need to be fierce, where you
Hmm.
need to produce, where you need to be there, you need to show up, you need to work hard. Sometimes there is no space for I couldn't do it, or I forgot, or I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It depends on what it is. But definitely, there are times where someone needs to realize that something was not done correctly
Hmm.
and cannot happen again. And that it goes, you can tell, well, maybe I was rude or disrespectful to an employee, right? Well, if you know it was one employee and you address the issue, that's fine. But if you don't, well,
Hmm.
you better brace for impact because a lot of things are going to go wrong when the head of the farm is disrespecting employees, or it has a hard time accepting some of these things. And it doesn't have to be the owner, it could be the supervisor, it
Hmm.
could be someone else with some sort of power. And the same is interactions in between employees, right? One employee is doing more than the other one,
Hmm.
right? And then obviously there is an issue, or you have employees who are not doing what as much as they are supposed to be doing. So those things these books help you with. It's
Yep.
about reasoning, thinking.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
My other one that I recommend a lot that's been I read it last year and I've recommended it to so many people and I feel like a lot of people have read it and been like, "Oh, that book was kind of dry." But I like dry books sometimes. This was
Right.
again a book written by a PhD scientist. This is what he studies. So it's very evidence-based. And it's called 10 to 25: The Science of Motivating Young People.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's about that post 10 up to 25 years of age. So it is, as a college professor, it's the age of a lot of the students that I work with. Like college students fall right within that range. Um, and so that's the age group of a lot of the people that I work with. But if you're working with people who are freshly graduated from college, it would be, or like a few years out of school, it'd be another great resource. Um, I really loved it. I recommend it to everybody. And like I said, I think a lot of people have found it a little bit drier than I have, but it's just so like packed, densely packed with information, and great approaches. And again, it's a person who like this is his PhD is around
Mm-hmm.
this age group, right?
This age
Um,
group.
so and it's all very research based. Uh, and looks at like neurobiology and all that. And basically, the premise of the book is that young people actually like to be held to a high standard, um, but you need to combine that high standard with high levels of support. Um, so they want to be able to achieve things, but they also need the tools to be able to do that. Um, and so they want that respect, they want that status, but they might not have all the tools to be able to achieve those things. And so like providing some scaffolding for them and helping them. And I have a quote from him that's I don't remember if it's from him or if from it's when Adam Grant was quoting him. But
Okay.
I have it
Mhm.
on my desk and um it says, I'm giving you this feedback because I have high expectations and I'm confident that you can achieve them. So it's both the like, yes, I have high expectations from you, but also I have confidence in you and I'm here for the support that you need. So highly recommend if you're dealing with like that, even if you're dealing with younger people like parents and high school age kids. But if you're dealing with the college graduates and post right after college, it's a great read. So
Mhm. I didn't know about that book. That sounds like a
yeah,
pretty interesting
yeah.
one.
We've been chatting for a while, so we should probably start probably start should
Spanish.
start yeah. Well, as we kind of wrap up today, what is your if you could recommend one fiction book from the okay, I'll say two. If you could recommend two fiction books this year, what would you recommend?
Fiction books, fiction books. Well, one of the ones that I like, but not everybody likes that, is history.
Hmm.
So, uh, there was one book that I liked. It was historical fiction. It's called uh, The Plot Against America. I think that's
Mm.
the name of the book. And it was in the Second World War, depictions of the war and kind of different presidents, even this famous aviator Lindbergh, I think was his last name, Lindbergh.
Hmm.
In this fictional novel, he was the president of the United States.
Oh,
So, yeah, and how the war turned differently. So the events changed completely what happened. So it is almost like The Man in the High Castle, which was a series on Hulu. I mean, as far as that things that change. But I think that was a good book. Because I like history. Another book that it's fiction. Well, I could choose another historical. But for example, yes, I would say The Witcher.
mm.
The
I haven't
Witcher,
read
I
those
mean, that's
yet.
not
Yeah.
historical fiction, but it merges different aspects of mythology, right? You have, I guess, for example, the name of the witches, they call them bruxas. In Spanish, you say bruja. So,
Mm.
a witch, it's a bruja.
Oh,
So, see, I mean, I think the guy, whoever, I suppose, they always delve into let's research the topic and let's know more about it. So I think that's very well done.
yeah,
So, and like I said, how they develop characters, I think that's what I like. But I
yeah.
was gonna say that, well, I guess I can say this at the end because I would like to hear your books.
Yes. So the two that I read this year for fiction that like really stuck with me. So I this is a little bit cheating because I read it for the second time this year. It's a book called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It is so good. Like I read it when it first came out in I don't remember like 2022 I think. Um and it's been like it was a book that just sat with me forever. And so I read it again this year just for the enjoyment of it. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And I would not have read it based on like because it's about like this trio of friends and they develop video games and I've never been into video games and but it was like on an NPR list or something like that. It was on some list and I was like, maybe. And I like listened to it, I think when it first came out, and I was like, oh dang, this book is so good. And so I wanted to buy a hard copy so that I had like a physical copy to reread when I
Mhm.
wanted, and I reread it again this year. And it was still reading it again the second time, it was just as good as reading it the first time. It's very much about it's very character driven. It's about the experience of these three people. They like two of them meet as like young people, like, and then they meet again in college and they start this video game company and they like have these like tensions throughout their lives and it'll make you cry. It's like it's so good. Um but yes, so highly recommend that one. And then the other one that I read that just came out this year, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, because it is fantasy, but it's called Catabasis,
Mhm.
Katabas. It's by R.F. Kuang, and R.F. Kuang wrote she wrote Babel and she wrote the Poppy War series. So I've really liked everything she's come out with so far, but this has been my favorite book that I've read by her, and it's like Dante's Inferno,
Okay.
but for
Mhm.
like academics. And so she
Mm.
like writes this like she has this world where you can like go get a PhD in magic basically, and then there's like an accident in the lab, and this PhD student's advisor ends up going to hell. And so she goes down to hell, like through the levels of hell to like rescue him. And it's fantasy. It's kind of like Dante's Inferno. Ara Kwong is a brilliant person. She's like a smart person in her own right. She's in a PhD program or she already has a PhD. I don't remember. But she's like incredibly smart. And then writes fiction. And when she writes fiction, it really is just it's just beautiful.
Mhm.
So those are the two that I would recommend from this year anyway for fiction.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Never heard of them, but I'm curious about it. I'm curious now about those books.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's something that we usually do, right? You and I, when we meet, so we talk about books
Yep.
almost at
Yep.
least for a bit. What
What
are
have you
you
been
reading?
reading? Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, no, I was gonna say that one thing that it's beyond, we are talking about leadership, and I think what we need is leadership, right? In
Mm-hmm.
those places, those farms. I think you can have a great team, but all the books of the world are not going to help. Yes, it's good to know how to solve conflict. It's good to know how to talk to employees, but most importantly, you need to know your people
Mm-hmm.
because a leader is not the one telling them what to do. It's the one in front showing them how to do things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something it's forgotten, not in bad faith. Sometimes it's just forgotten because we are all learning. So we need to learn how to be a mom and dad, a friend. In this
Mm-hmm.
case, how to cook. If you want to cook something good, you need to be better at it. The same leadership. You need to be better at it. You need to cultivate that part. And that the only way is by actually connecting with your people and
Mm-hmm.
knowing who they are, and I think that goes a long way because when feedback comes from someone who has their best interest in mind, that changes how the whole interaction happens. But if someone is only noticed when they did something wrong, that's sending a complete different message. Like, how come I was never praised when I did this and that, or when I stay late, or when I
Mm-hmm.
help with this? Now I did something wrong and they are on me, and that's the part that, like I said, it derails the dynamic in between I guess in this case, the management team or the leadership team and the
Mm-hmm.
employees.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes,
So read up.
read up, right?
Yep.
A leer,
Yes. Yes. A
a
leer.
leer. So now, what are you reading right now or listening?
I am reading a book called Tress of the Emerald Sea, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a oh gosh, what's his name? Brandon Sanderson.
Okay,
So he's a
okay.
fantasy writer.
Mhm.
It's just so good. It's just so fun. It's like a heroine's journey, right? So it's this girl, she lives on an island in this fantasy world, and she's got this boy that she's in love with, and then his father sends him away, and then she has to go rescue him. And right now she's like on a pirate ship, and she's like trying to go rescue like the love of her life. And it's very
Okay,
and the author is very like, or the voice that he's writing in is just funny. Like it's like a hug. I love it. I'm having a great time with it.
nice. I'm glad. Okay. So one book that I would say it's fiction. It's fiction, but I would recommend to get to know people. Maybe the other books are like that, but this author, Ken Follett, the name of the book is The Pillars of the Earth.
Mm,
It talks
mm,
about how they build it's a very old, I don't even remember exactly, but it's an old building in England, a church, a cathedral. Anyway, the way he developed characters for me is like one of the best. And I that really gives you a different perspective of when you see someone, who that person really is, right? Because sometimes you just see them. But in this book, the way he talks about characters and develops them, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's great. But anyway, I just thought about that. Those books really helped me, like I said, understanding people,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just what they tell you, it's also what they do, how they do it. And the more they talk, you get to know them better. So that helps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we've
Well,
been talking for a long time, and if we have any listeners who aren't readers, they're probably like, I came here to listen to podcasts, not hear about books. Um, but we want to thank everybody for joining us on our special series. We will be back. We're just going to take a pause for a little bit after this first season. But we appreciate you all for joining us and having fun, hopefully, along with us as we've been practicing Spanish and talking about some of these things. We want to thank you for listening. If you would be so kind, this is what I want for Christmas is for people to fill out our survey.
yes.
So you've heard me talk about this if you've been listening on a couple previous episodes. But as somebody who is paid by your taxpayer dollars, it's really important that what we're doing has impact and is useful and is providing value. And the way you can tell us whether or not that is happening is by filling out our survey. It's quite short. I tried to make it short and easy. Obviously, if you're listening to this in the car while you're driving, don't do it while you're driving. But if you have a second to go fill out our survey, we'd really appreciate it. So the link is on the show notes, but you can also go to go.iastate.edu/Spanish Fry. That's Spanish and then FRI is in Spanish Friday.
Mhm.
So if you have a minute, that can be your Christmas present to me.
Exactly.
Yes.
For me too.
Yeah. And again, we want to thank you all for listening. If you want to learn more about what we do and the things that we work on, you can check out our websites. Mine is extension.iastate.edu/dairy team. That's where you can hear about what I'm working on, as well as the other members of our dairy team, and see some of our Iowa State Extension resources. And you can visit Miguel's website for information about his consulting and recruiting work at optimumdairy.com. Thank you for
Mhm.
joining.
Thank you much. Hasta luego.
This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or combination inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/ext.